My world began to fray at the edges with subtle signs, like a persistent rash I foolishly dismissed as nothing serious. Jenna and I had built a life together over 8 years, a familiar narrative of youthful affection that had once felt like a perfect, cozy haven. But in recent months, a disquiet had settled over our home, mirroring the growing chasm between us. Jenna's once vibrant and passionate nature now manifested in frequent late nights with a new circle of friends I'd never encountered. The faint, cloying scent of an unfamiliar, cheaper perfume often clung to her clothes when she returned. My hesitant inquiries about her evenings were met with increasingly vague and defensive responses, leaving me feeling like the one at fault for simply asking. Then came the undeniable, a pair of unfamiliar men's shoes sitting by the front door. They were certainly not mine. Jenna's hurried explanation about a friend didn't even begin to touch the icy dread that instantly gripped me. My mind began to race, replaying a montage of subtle shifts in her behavior. Her increased secrecy with her phone, her sudden disinterest in our usual routines, and most notably, her interactions with Dave, the home security technician. He was younger, undeniably fit, and whenever he visited for routine checks, there was an undeniable, charged energy between them that I had consciously tried to ignore. That night, my nagging paranoia finally overwhelmed my sense of decency. Shame gnawed at me as I unlocked Jenna's phone while she was in the shower, but the desperate need for answers eclipsed my guilt. The truth, when I found it, landed like a physical blow to the gut, a string of increasingly explicit messages exchanged between Jenna and Dave. They detailed their affair with a shocking intimacy, revealing Jenna's yearning to feel alive again. The confrontation that followed was explosive, a raw eruption of hurt and fury. "Jenna, who the hell is Dave?" I demanded, my voice trembling despite my attempts to maintain control. Her wide, startled eyes confirmed my deepest fears. I hurled her phone onto the bed, the incriminating messages glowing accusingly between us. Her stammered denials and pathetic excuses were a stark contrast to the fear I saw flickering in her eyes. The betrayal was a deep, jagged wound, a pain so profound it felt physically debilitating. I had never envisioned myself as this man, the cliché of a husband facing his wife's infidelity. My carefully constructed world had shattered into a million pieces, leaving me feeling lost and utterly uncertain. That moment, charged with anger and a crushing sense of loss, marked the beginning of a dark transformation, a shift from a trusting partner to someone contemplating the bitter taste of revenge. Sleep offered no solace that night. My mind was a relentless battlefield of anger, grief, and a gnawing sense of betrayal, all fueling a primal urge for retribution. I knew I had to do something, but what? I couldn't act rashly. I needed a plan, something calculated that would make Jenna truly understand the devastating impact of her betrayal. Days bled into weeks as I meticulously began to gather evidence. Hidden cameras, strategically placed around our home, became my silent witnesses, documenting Jenna's continued deception and her increasingly guarded behavior. Each furtive text message from Dave was like a fresh, agonizing sting, but it also brought a grim sense of satisfaction, a perverse comfort in knowing I was slowly uncovering the full extent of their affair. I eventually discovered their plan for a weekend getaway, cleverly disguised as a girl's trip with her friends. This was my golden opportunity, a chance to expose her lies and reveal the truth. I played the role of the supportive, oblivious husband, even helping her pack her bags while she chattered on about the fun she was going to have. Little did she know, I had plans of my own. I made arrangements to gain access to her phone while she was away, enlisting a tech-savvy friend to help me craft a carefully worded social media post from her account, subtly hinting at a new, exciting relationship and a newfound sense of happiness. As Jenna finally left, a volatile mix of exhilaration and anxiety coursed through me. I was playing a dangerous game, but I was determined to make her feel the weight of her decisions. Late that night, after she had checked into her hotel room with Dave, I sent the message. The next morning, I watched with a cold, detached satisfaction as her friends' confused and concerned comments began to flood in. But my plan was more intricate than just a single social media post. I also hired a private investigator, an old acquaintance, to delve into Dave's background, hoping to unearth any information that could tarnish his reputation, not just in Jenna's eyes, but in the eyes of anyone who mattered. The investigator soon provided me with a file detailing Dave's history of questionable behavior and a few unsavory encounters. This became another crucial element in my carefully orchestrated plan. Upon her return, I casually left Dave's background check prominently displayed on the kitchen counter. The look of shock and dawning realization on Jenna's face as she read it was almost worth the weeks of torment I had endured. Her frantic denials and accusations of me trying to sabotage her were weak and unconvincing. I calmly countered with the undeniable truth of her affair, the comfort she had so readily sought in another man's arms. Her desperate attempts to justify her actions with hollow excuses fell flat against the stark reality of her betrayal. Leading up to her return, I had also subtly planted seeds of doubt among some of her closest friends, hinting at our troubled marriage and Dave's suspicious behavior. The calls and concerned messages she received that weekend confirmed the effectiveness of my efforts. Her carefully constructed web of lies was beginning to unravel, and the growing isolation she felt was a bitter but satisfying consequence of her choices. One evening, the tension in our home thick enough to cut with a knife, Jenna finally confronted me, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and anxiety. She spoke of wanting to fix things, to somehow undo the damage she had caused. But her words rang hollow. Make things right, I echoed, the chasm of broken trust feeling insurmountable. You mean by continuing to lie and manipulate? Her desperate pleas and attempts to portray Dave as merely someone to talk to only fueled the cold anger that had taken root within me. I want you to understand the gravity of what you've done, I finally stated, my voice low and devoid of emotion. I want you to be scared. The raw fear that flickered in her eyes was undeniable. I laid out my intentions to expose everything to her friends and family, to shatter the carefully curated image she had maintained. Her frantic attempts to dissuade me were met with a cold, unwavering resolve. In the heavy silence that followed that intense conversation, I felt a storm of conflicting emotions brewing within me. The initial thrill of revenge was beginning to sour, replaced by a gnawing unease. I had set a course of action in motion, and while a part of me still craved retribution, another part was beginning to question the person I was becoming. The next day, I took a day off work, needing space to think. With Jenna at home, still attempting to manage the fallout with her friends, I sensed a shift in her demeanor. She was trying to appear strong, but the underlying anxiety was palpable. I used this opportunity to finalize my plan. I compiled all the evidence I had meticulously gathered, the incriminating text messages, the documented encounters, Dave's background check, into a comprehensive file. My intention was to send this not to utterly destroy her, but to ensure that her closest circle understood the complete truth, to see the woman who had betrayed her marriage and sought solace in another man. As I prepared the email, a moment of hesitation flickered within me, a brief temptation to abandon the idea. But the darker, vengeful side of me prevailed. With a click, the email vanished into the digital ether. There was no turning back now. Later that evening, Jenna was in the living room, her face illuminated by the glow of her phone screen. I watched as her expression shifted from mild annoyance to disbelief as notifications began to flood in. Her friends and family were reaching out, their messages filled with concern and confusion. "Mike, what did you do?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of disbelief and anger as she confronted me in the kitchen. "What did you send them?" I looked at her, trying to suppress a smirk. "Just a little truth-telling," I replied casually. "Thought they should know how you've been spending your time." "Do you have any idea how this will affect me?" she shouted, her frustration boiling over. "You're destroying my life." I shrugged, crossing my arms. "You did that when you decided to cheat on me. This is just the fallout of your choices." The conversation spiraled into a heated argument, her anger and despair met with my cold, calculated pronouncements of the truth. I watched her panic, a twisted sense of satisfaction growing within me, but it was quickly followed by a creeping sense of guilt. I was witnessing her unravel before my eyes, and I had orchestrated the entire scene. Eventually, she turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Mike, please," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I know I messed up, I know I hurt you. But this isn't going to help either of us. You're just pushing me away more." Her words resonated, piercing through the hardened shell I had built around my heart. Despite everything, a part of me still cared. I just wanted you to understand the depth of your betrayal, I said, my voice softening slightly. And I do, she replied, her voice thick with tears. I understand that I've messed up, but your revenge isn't going to heal our marriage. It's only going to destroy us both. Her raw honesty struck a chord. The path of revenge was leading to mutual destruction. Maybe you're right, I admitted slowly, the anger finally beginning to recede. This wasn't the right way to handle things. But I wanted you to feel the fear and helplessness I felt when I discovered your affair. We sat in a heavy silence, the weight of our broken vows hanging in the air. Jenna looked at me, her eyes filled with a desperate hope. I don't want to lose you, Mike. I'm willing to do anything to try and salvage this. I can't change the past, but I want to work on our future. The genuine resolve in her voice made me reconsider everything. Maybe there was still a chance, a fragile possibility of rebuilding. If we're going to even attempt to move forward, I said, my voice weary, we need complete honesty. No more lies, no more secrets. Jenna nodded, her eyes filled with a flicker of hope. I promise, Mike. I'll do everything I can to make this right. For the first time since discovering her betrayal, I felt a fragile seed of hope begin to sprout in the barren landscape of my heart. The darkness still lingered, a shadow in the background, but I realized that the road ahead, though undoubtedly difficult, might not be entirely without light. As we sat down together, the air still thick with unspoken words and unresolved pain, I felt a subtle shift in our dynamic. We had a long and arduous journey ahead, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could find our way back to each other. It wouldn't be easy, and the scars would undoubtedly remain, but for the first time in a long time, we were both willing to fight. In the end, I was beginning to understand that true strength wasn't found in inflicting pain, but in the difficult and uncertain path of healing, together or apart.